Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of What's Happening. I'm George Binns, and I'm here with my co-host, Elliot Margolis. And we're starting the election campaign season for the city of Beverly. And as our first guest, it's Euplio Rick Marciano, better known as Rick.
Yes.
You're running for City Council, Ward 3, right?
Yes.
Why do you want to be the City Councilor at Ward 3?
I feel I've been going, through the city of Ward 3 for a long, long time, besides being born in Beverly Hospital. Mm-hmm. So I basically, it borders it, but I started off in Ward 3. Yeah. Lived on Blaine and everything like that, and I've seen the diversity of the whole area, and it's just a great area overall in the city.
If you get to be the candidate, by the way, there is a primary in the Ward 3. There are 5 candidates running for the 2 seats for the final election. This gets to be complicated. So, assuming you get through all of this thing, what do you want to do different for the city?
Differently, I feel I'm more physically conservative, and I know a lot of the numbers. And I think that's a key portion of it, to let the citizens know that I'm going to look out for their welfare. I've always done that, reference to property taxes, the trash fee, all those fees there. I can look at them, I can analyze them. Same thing with the school budget. So I'm going to look out for their welfare. And safety's a part of it, too, within the city of Ward. We've got some different changes that need to be made and should be made as soon as possible in reference to safety.
For instance?
Where the high school's at, going up Herrick Street, there's a side street that comes out Ames Street. There should be a crosswalk either at the beginning or the next end, or the other plan I was looking at is you go further down, run it straight into the entrance of Beverly High School where Herrick Street enters. Mm-hmm. There's nothing there. The sidewalk you see that runs along the sports field, that's not a sidewalk. That's actually long-term parking. So they can block that completely. So all the children of the school, they're supposed to cross the street somewhere when they come out there, and I've seen children almost get hit, especially in the winter, because they're walking down where the sidewalk really is not a sidewalk, even though the citizens have complained. But then I had to let them know that even the chief of police knows that's basically long-term parking, and they can block that.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, you talked about being fiscally responsible. There's a group of people in the city of Beverly, and I'm one of them, who is getting a petition together to eliminate the CPA. Okay, how do you feel about that?
That's one of the things I've looked at, and I would eliminate it, but at the same time, they should come up with a percentage, and they should make it a law that this percentage comes out of the city budget automatically to go towards the CPA projects. They shouldn't double dip on the property owners, even if it's $1. The point is they should not be doing that. The property taxes are out of control right now, and I feel with all this new growth going on, we're not getting 1% of that. The city's taking 100% of the new growth.
Well, the current mayor says no matter how you slice it, he's always going to increase the tax as much as he possibly can by law. That's what he said. Now, how do you feel about that?
That's been a norm in Beverly. What they're supposed to do first is they're supposed to figure out what the budget is. See where, if we're ahead on the budget, they don't have to multiply times 2.5% off the levy. But like you said, it's a constant in Beverly. That's what they do. I've seen other cities do the budget first, as I said earlier, and they come up, we can go 2.35 to give the citizens somewhat of a break. There may be a spec, but still, if I'm going to say we're paying an extra $1 for the CPA, then, it's just every cent that we can save anywhere, that's what I'd like to do.
I think one of the things when you get into the budget is, there's a Prop 2.5 that says 2.5% increase is all you're allowed year after year. And yet you look at your increase in taxes, and it's 2.5% plus something. So they get into this game of new growth. And I think the part of the point you started to make there is they talk about putting a lot of growth in the city because it's going to ease off on the taxpayers. And yet none of us have seen any reduction in the taxes because of all the buildings on Rantoul Street, the Cummings Center, which is part of your ward, or Dunham Road, which is now being developed. How do we get this to change?
That's when you take a portion of the new growth. I believe we may have brought in 1,250,000 this year. That's a rough estimate on new growth. Well, we should have 25% that's taken off. So they could, rather than multiplying times 2.50, they can multiply times 2.25. Give a little bit back to the citizens. We get 100% of the new traffic. We get the schools, more children in the schools. We take all the repercussions, but what do we get out of it? We get zero relief.
Well, part of the argument comes down to one of, we need to have a rainy day fund for surprises. And you look at the roads around Beverly, or like Salem just went through a horror story where they blew a water main. And one of the main streets was blocked off, and you got emergency work that has to be done. So how do you feel about, how big should the rainy day fund be?
We need to have something for precautions definitely there. But a big problem is in its reference to Chapter 70 funds, the funding for the schools. People are not aware that a student in the Beverly School District is receiving approximately $2,005 from the state right now. So you went up a whole $5 extra. Now, so
okay.
Yeah, so we get the $2,500. Now you study the city of Lynn. Lynn gets $2,005. Then the state throws in another $2,005. Then the state throws in another $2,005. Believe it or not, another $2,005. And then another $2,005, plus a little bit more. So they're getting 5 times as much as the city of Beverly's getting. So the Chapter 70, as far as it comes, I'm not going to use the word corrupt, but it's completely broken. All students, no matter what the situation is, should be treated equal. They should be getting approximately $5,000 each to equal out across the state.
Well, I can understand Lynn has got more problems than Beverly,
yes,
because we had one of the gentlemen on here was talking about the city of Lynn. They got 60 different languages in the school system because of the influx of immigrants. And some of those languages, nobody knows how to speak them. It's Mayan or something else. So I can understand that they need a little more help than Beverly. But why that much disparity?
Well, part of it is that there are about 64%, or expect more, in economically disadvantaged children. Beverly's a little over 30%. But which makes us about 46% of, if you compare both of them. So we should definitely be receiving a lot more than what we're receiving now. But the language part of it, like what some countries do is you learn the English language first, then they're going to put you in the school system. Some of my older relatives, when they came over from Italy, they stuck them in kindergarten till they learned the English, then they could move up at that point there, but they were put right in.
I've actually suggested that to other candidates before, particularly from the federal level, is in Israel, for instance. You go to Israel, you have to go to what they call an ulpan, which is a course in learning Hebrew. And until you know Hebrew, you don't go to school. And that saves a lot. It helps our education system, or their education system, because they're teaching one language. What's happening right now in Beverly and Massachusetts and in this country is the kids who want to learn are held back because they can't, they have to deal with the mainlining kids who don't know the language. So you've got a good point, but as a city councilor, you really don't have control over the school committee. So what can you do to convince the school committee to do it right?
The only time you have control is during school budget time, when that comes up. That's when the councilors can say yay or nay to the budget that they have, and they can try to explain that. But a large part of the voting base comes directly from the parents and the schools and all that. But that's the only time they can do it. Once they're allocated that money, the councilors can no longer say nothing in reference to what takes place after that. But even the computers right now can teach the English language. So there's so many technologies. As long as they're capable of learning the language in the computer, that'll save millions and millions of dollars compared to the system that we have set up right now. So, and then You know, if they're worried about money, they need to go there and fight the state for the money that we deserve in the city of Beverly. No one's fighting for that money. When the schools come out and say, we need more money from the city, you need to talk to the state. Talk to Jerry Paracello, the state rep. You know, is he willing to fight? I've seen him fight zero for the citizens of Beverly, because it makes no sense that we're only getting $2,005 per student. And then in the city of Lynn, they're getting over $10,000 per child. Makes zero sense. Part of the formula in the cities, it goes off of how much income's coming as an average. But because we have multi-millionaires up in Beverly Farms, we're going to be penalized because of that? What do they do? What do they do for the average citizen here in Beverly? They don't add anything to the school system. We don't make anything extra. You know, that's how I look at it. So why are we being penalized? And it's all the other cities around here, too, are being penalized. If we can't even have full-day kindergarten, it says definitely something's wrong. The state needs to give us a bigger piece of the pie for our education, if that's important to them. Education is important to me also, but it's got to be common sense. We're getting the end of the stick, you know, if you want to. And no one's fighting for us to, you know. One of the school committee members, oh, yeah, but they're, you know, lower income or whatever. No, you take care of the citizens of Beverly first. It's not, to me, education isn't, if you get more money, you're going to be better educated. It's how...
Good. It's a good point, because a lot of the money that we have for education, isn't that paid for with, you know, like paying off some of the schools and the rehabbing of the schools? Isn't that part of the budget?
A portion of it's $4-something million if you look at the foundation budget. Yeah. But normally, they just let the schools fall apart. Good excuse for saying, oh, we got a leak over here. Why you got a leak? You're not doing preventive maintenance.
Right.
But when a city gets rewarded every time with a new school, that hurts the state as a whole. Briscoe Middle School, that was a great, solid school. Solid brick walls. Those men and women that built that building used extra initiative to line those bricks up perfectly. Mm-hmm. If you get some crazy, they're all worried about security. A 7.62 assault rifle's not going through a brick wall. It's not happening. I can't say if it's going to happen with this new school, but it's not nothing compared to brick, you know, if they're worried about security. What I was looking at was up in Folly Hills. They have 76.62 acres up there we could have bought for approximately $15 million. We could have bought that, built a new middle school there. It was a nice area. We wouldn't have to destroy a building, a perfectly good building the taxpayers already paid for. Would have been great senior housing, even though I would have kept the police detectives in the back. That way there, they have security there, and I would have kept the fields for the sports also, because then the senior citizens get to look out where they, you know, some of them back in the 50s when they were younger, they could see where they, you know, played and everything else. So I'd leave it like that. But that's...
Speaking of the police, which you brought up, now there's a new proposal for a police station at Cummings. And on Facebook, I see people getting pretty cranky about how that building looks. Number one, how do you feel about the new police station at the Cummings Center? And what are we going to do with the old police station in City Hall?
Well, the old police station, the GR Hall, we've got some of the engineers are over in there. Well, they're actually, you get the permits and everything's over there. They're using the GR Hall. All those individuals there can actually go to the City Hall now. So we'll have one main area where the city can work out of other than the police station. The police station, I've been with the Community Advisory Committee meeting. They call it, you could say commission also. But I've been to those meetings. The chief of police has showed me the plans and everything. And the reason, when you look at the building, you say, why does it look like that? Is because he got with Mr. Cummings and the other managers there to make sure that that building would actually fit in with what was there. So that was the main, you know, priority, why it looks like that. Mm-hmm. So it fits in there. So I thought that was, you know, pretty fair and reasonable to look out for, you know, who's going to be your next door neighbor and fit that right. And it doesn't, you know, looking at all the plans, everything looks good right now.
All right, good.
Well, when you get into the issue of taking care of the citizens of Beverly, one of my concerns is the people that make this a vibrant community working downtown in the service industry, they have a hard time finding a place to live in Beverly. And we've had Andrew DeFrenza on the show talking about affordable housing. And there's two kinds of affordable housing. One that meets the Title B criteria, and then there's the housing that people can actually afford to live in. This implies that we're going to have to do something about the zoning. And do you have any thoughts about what we should do in zoning to make it more reasonable to have affordable housing and not just reproduce all these condos up and down Rantoul Street.
I kind of call those, we got mobile home communities. Right now, where the Ford station has, it looks like they're building mobile homes. They're putting all together.
Yeah,
Yeah. See,
well, they're a kit. They come in on a truck.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
so
all
they're pre-made.
Yeah.
Yeah, the mobile homes.
They're
you still-
modular. Yeah.
A mobile home, you got to get out and talk to your neighbor, but now you can talk to your neighbors through the wall, so it'll be a lot easier.
I think they're a little thicker than that,
Yes.
but okay.
And the valuation of the property is going to be down because they're going to say, oh, this is a modular home, so you can't. Property taxes will not be as high as they probably should be on that building because of how it's being built. So I'd like to do a comparison between those. But in reference to lowering what it's cost for housing and all that, I think that the state is part of it. With state-owned property, that's a part of it there because that way there, the prices will stay lower if it's run by the state. Like senior housing, if that went into the Briscoe Middle School, the original one, that rate would be a lot lower, like a lot of these other places. But if it's private like that, some of those, if they're going to call it senior housing, it only has to be 15% senior housing. Then they're getting the full rate for all, for itself. But there's no real answer to lower that unless you put a cap on that, on whoever owns the property. But if you can't put a cap on the property taxes, because that's the killer. My property taxes last year went up $532. So that was that was big, and that happened to a lot of people. But in other cases, if your valuation goes down on your property, then your property taxes actually went down when you analyze it.
Yeah, but I think we want to get back to the point of, okay, when they build one of these condos or apartment houses like on Rantoul Street, there is a requirement that they have 10% of the property as, quote, affordable.
Yes.
Now, there's two ways to do this. One is you actually put apartments in there that are in the price range that makes them, quote, affordable. Or the other option is the builder can contribute some funds to another type of properties built somewhere else. And that gets down to the issue of, okay, where else you're going to build it?
Right.
And you look at the zoning that we're having around town, it's R10 or R30, 40, half an acre. This is what's driving up the cost. I look at my property tax, my assessment, and half the value of my property, half of the value of my total house is the property it sits on. And on where I'm living, it's like $1 million an acre is the assessed value of the property. Now, I don't have an acre, unfortunately, but how are you going to change the zoning, or how can you do something with the zoning so that we can make areas that are affordable without having to put in, 40-story buildings because you're only allowed so much footprint?
They changed the zoning downtown years ago, around 2007. It used to be per 1,000 square feet of commercial property, you could have one unit and you had to have a parking space and a half. Now, as long as you have a parking space within 500 feet as the crow flies, you can stack them and pack them.
Yeah.
Up to 70 feet if you get the special permit. And what they try to do, the planning board, is they do the threshold at 12% for low-income housing.
Yeah.
That way there, we don't go, the state law is 10%.
Yeah.
In there's certain areas of Beverly you don't want the 40Bs where you can just, the zoning, you do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So they try to make sure that the planning board's always doing 12%. Then they build other houses and they put extra low-income housing in there and they use that for credits. So that's another way of getting out besides paying that fee. But in reference to what you're saying, it's kind of the state, because of what the state subsidizes sometimes, individuals, that's a reason the price is up there also. I had Section 8 years ago in my house, and the payment was $1,200. They had to pay $149, and then the federal government, or Section 8, they provided $1,051. Yeah. So now, once the landlords know they can charge that much for a piece of property, that's why the prices are high right now. I believe, because if the state's not going to subsidize these individuals, they're going to have to lower it for everybody.
Well, then now you get into a situation where if they're not subsidized, they got to move someplace else. And where else do they go?
Well, in my opinion, the landlord wants to rent their property.
Oh, of course. Yeah, he's in it to make money.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, Otherwise, he wouldn't have built the place, or he wouldn't have modified it, or whatever it takes.
Right, right. But you're definitely correct. That's the biggest problem, I think, in Beverly is the cost of the housing, because a lot of senior citizens and the children, they want to stay in Beverly, but it's getting harder and harder. And I wish, but you can't. I don't want to tell a landlord or a property owner you have to have this specific rate. And again, unless you control the property taxes, because you don't know what they've been hitting the 2 families and the 3 families. They've been really hitting them hard for property taxes. So it's just. And when they get hit, that's why some rents I've read gone up $100, $200, $300 overnight, just to keep up with the property taxes. So it's kind of a two-way street. Then sorry.
No, go ahead. You can finish.
Then the cost of water and sewer is going up.
Yeah.
You see the CPA. So what if it's $30 or $40 extra per year? That adds up. That $30 or $40 extra dollars. And certain individuals, they'll say that, oh no, because you're this age, you don't have to pay the CPA, which I kind of indirectly agree with, but now they have no skin in the game. It's kind of like you're going to say a certain population, they hit a certain age, their property taxes are locked in. So they could care less if there's a Proposition 2.5 override. Mm-hmm. They have no skin in the game, so they'll just sit back. So I don't know if you've heard the new state law for senior citizens, which is great. They're going to lock whatever they pay for property taxes in. They want to lock that rate in there. But I would put an exception to when they locked it in there. If there's a Proposition 2.5 override, and the property taxes increase, their property taxes will be increased by whatever that amount is. So now they have skin in the game to say that, hey, if I don't go out and vote against this Proposition 2.5 override, I'm going to get stuck with a higher property tax bill.
The other thing is, of course, if senior citizens don't have to pay any more, that means everybody else does.
Exactly.
Okay, but now one of my pet peeves, okay, tax classification. Now, let me explain it a little bit. Right now, in Beverly, the commercial property pays 175% of the tax rate, and therefore the residential property pays less, which saves the homeowner $25, $30, $50 a year, but costs the business community thousands and thousands of dollars a year. Now, when it costs the business community that much more, prices go up because that's their overhead. So when I had a business in Gloucester and we used to negotiate or go to the city council meetings, because every year the city council has to decide what rate to pay, on classification, we were able to convince the city council through all the numbers that we had that to keep the classification at $150 for everybody. Okay, no extra. It just keeps it reasonable so that you can bring more commercial people in. The more commercial people that come in, the lower your tax rate should go, as George sort of alluded to earlier, because the commercial people don't have as many services. How do you feel about tax classification?
I look at cities like Wyndham and Topsfield. Their tax rates could be $15 or $16 per thousand. Where right now we're currently at $13.60 per residential. But then the businesses are paying over $25 per thousand. So you're correct; they're way up there. But my feelings on that, there's a law, there's a scale that you go off, and we have to sit within that scale.
Right.
I want to keep residents, that's a priority, but I understand that the businesses, it does definitely hurt the business with the cost of overhead and everything else. Then the meals tax they got to pay and everything else that goes along with that. Every year it's getting tougher and tougher. And then the city, we're looking at putting a restaurant down where the McDonald's site is. We have enough restaurants here already, and now we're undermining other businesses by taking clients away from them, so they're going to go down and use that restaurant.
I still want to put a replica of the ship Hannah there.
Yes,
that's my thing. That's Glover's Wharf. That's where it belongs.
Yes.
I said to Mayor Scanlon one time, Beverly is the city that you go through when you're visiting Salem and heading to Gloucester. He was offended by that. But we have an awful lot of history in Beverly, and nobody knows it.
Yes. And you're exactly right. The first Continental Navy ship, it left the Beverly Harbor. Right. It was retrofitted here on orders of George Washington. And nobody's willing, which is amazing, willing to go and do exactly what you said. Put a replica there. We could even start off with an in-case model of what the schooner Hannah looked like.
Right.
I mean, to start off with, but nobody even has a clue. It's like that's a place, it's a dead zone. You have to go down there and see what's going on. But they don't want to publicize it. It doesn't make any sense.
See but you would be in favor of doing something like that.
Oh, yes, definitely.
I'm moving to Ward 3.
Okay.
So you know where I'm coming from there.
Oh, definitely.
Beverly is a great city, and nobody knows it.
First cotton gin, I believe, up by the fire station, North Beverly Fire Station, an individual invented that. There's just so many things that we don't even know.
The history in this city is incredible.
Yes.
And nobody knows it. You got the Cabots, you've got the Hale House.
Yeah. You drive around town and you see these buildings, 1620, 1630. Everybody talks about, the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth in 1620. Oh, that's nice. What happened after that? I don't know. And yet you see there is activity in this area that dates back to those days.
Yes.
And
1930, we had our tricentennial, 300 years.
Yeah.
They put a stone down where McKay School is, down at the base of there. A couple of years ago, they tore that stone out of there. It's like tearing the Plymouth Rock out. And they moved it along the walking trail of the Cumming Center.
Okay.
So nobody has a clue that really was put in there in 1930 over by McKay School.
yeah.
So they changed history is what they did.
Okay, Rick, we don't have much time left, but what I'd like you to do for the next 2 minutes, and only 2 minutes, or we'll cut you off.
Right.
All right?
I wasn't... Oh, did you want me to say something or whatever?
What I want to know is
Yes.
why should people vote for you in the primary and have you as their counselor in Ward 3? Knock yourself out.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to go along with the 15-something years of experience I have going to the council. I basically used to live there at the city council, going to all the planning board meetings, conservation commission meetings, the council meetings, and a bunch of other meetings that took place in the city. I do have that experience, but I've always looked out for the citizen, as you all know. I've got a plan in reference on Herrick Street, trying to get a crosswalk in there and make it safer for the children. If there's other areas, there's walkways that handicapped individuals on the wheelchairs or on the motorized wheelchairs, it's dangerous in Ward 3 to go up certain curves. I'm looking at that right there. So I've always talked with citizens. I try to work with them. But if I'm not in the city council, for me to really take action, it's very tough. Other than on Ball Street, we have the senior housing over there. I sent a letter to the mayor to get a walkway on the other side of the housing, and there's a walkway there right now. So that was taken care of, which is great. Of course, they tore the other walkway up on the other side, but that'll be taken care of also. McKay School, I'm working with the president of Windover right now to make sure that the 6-foot wide right-of-way that we have going through the back is going to be there. 2 benches have already been put in there. And also they're going to put a sign up, pedestrian walkway. So I'm looking out for Ward 3. And it may not be my job, but I've been doing it for 15-something years, looking out for the welfare of the citizens of the city, Ward 3 also. And that's part of what you do, whether you're there or not. But if I was there, I think I'd have a little bit more of a voice to stand up for the citizens and help us out as a whole. And the diversity of Ward 3, we're a little bit of everything. So it's a great place. And I'd definitely be happy to be Ward 3 councilor and represent the citizens of the ward. Thank you.
Okay, Rick, thanks very much for being a contestant.
Rick, thank you very much.
one of 5 contestants.
Yes.
We appreciate it. I hope everybody learned a little about you. And the most important thing is, when the time comes for the primary, get out and vote. Because voting is your right, it's your privilege, and we need to have a good city council to run the city. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the next show.